In the last video, we spoke about why most of the pharma companies are setting up their GCC centers in India and what's so special and advantages for them. And in this video, we are going to see what is actually happening in India in GCC centers. If you haven't watched the last video, watch it and watch this video, only then this will make a sense. To put in perspective, you should actually understand how big of a role India is playing in the pharma market of the world. Indian-based GCCs can now handle almost 45% of the global drug discovery development and 60% of regulatory affairs and 54% of medical affairs. That means when a drug gets submitted to the FDA for approval, it almost has more than 50% chance to get manufactured either in Hyderabad or in Bangalore. But here is a subtle shift that most people miss. India isn't manufacturing anymore, it is deciding what to manufacture. Let me explain what I mean. In the old model, the pharma headquarters would say, develop this molecule, run these trials, file the submission, and India would just execute. In the new model, the Indian-based teams are running biostatistics analysis that determines if a drug moves forward or not, real-world evidence studies that shapes treatment guidelines, regulatory strategy that decides which market to enter first. These are strategical decisions and not tactical ones. Around 40% of India's clinical trial professionals now work inside GCCs, not just CROs. Think about what that actually means. The people who are designing and running clinical trials don't work for third-party vendors anymore. They directly work for pharma companies. That's not outsourcing, that's organizational restructuring. India is becoming the pharma's second brain, and in some cases, it's first. But here's the brutal, uncomfortable truth that is going to make some people angry. India has the job, India has the infrastructure, and India also has the money flowing in. But what India doesn't have is the people who are skilled enough to cope up with these JCCs. Let me break down why this is happening, because it's not what you think. While pharma was transforming into a tech-enabled industries, Indian colleges kept teaching biology as it was in 1995. So your typical biotech degree will teach you molecular techniques, lab protocols, cell biology, and maybe in some cases bioinformatics if you're lucky enough. You graduate thinking you're ready for pharma, but no. The answer clearly is no. Then you apply to GCCs and they suddenly ask, do you know to code in Python? Do you learn to understand machine learning models? Or can you build a predictive toxicity model? The answer clearly again is no. It's not that you're less smart, it's because you were never taught or exposed to these things. Your degree prepared you for a lab that doesn't exist at scale anymore. The industry moved, but the education didn't. Here's the stat that should terrify any and every biotech student. Only 15 to 20% of India's current biotech workforce has meaningful AI and ML skills. Meanwhile, the demand in AI for healthcare has been exploding from almost 500,000 in 2022 to 1.25 million jobs in 2027. Over 500 AI-enabled pharma GCCs are operating in India right now. They are hiring desperately, but they are not hiring fresh graduates. They are hiring someone with cross skill sets, which means they hire IT professionals who are trained in bio, they hire engineers who learned pharma, they hire data scientists who picked up regulatory knowledge. Why? Because it is easier to teach biology to a tech student rather than to teach tech to a bio student. Because modern pharma needs people who can understand different languages, biology and computation, science and regulatory affairs, lab work and data modeling. It's not enough just to know how protein works these days. You need to know how to model protein-drug interactions using computational tools. So the job isn't biologist anymore. It is computational biologist, it is regulatory data scientist, and it is AI-enabled drug developers. And Indian colleges, they are still producing biologists. You know what's the most interesting stat? Only 16% of the Indian healthcare organizations have operational generative AI initiatives. Think about it. We have almost 500 plus AI-enabled pharma companies in India, but barely any of these organizations has figured out how to deploy AI at scale. The infrastructure is here, the demand is here, but the execution capability, that is missing. You know why? Because education has created a set of professionals who understand only theory and not application. Meanwhile, by 2027 to 28, GCCs without substantial AI capabilities will lose their contracts to competitors. And professionals without these skill sets, they'll be competing for jobs that doesn't even exist anymore. And here's the most brutal part. Companies won't wait for education to catch up. They'll just hire from other industries, they'll import talent and they'll train that particular talent from scratch and they'll just deploy it in that particular domain. What they won't do is lower their bar. So you have a choice. Keep getting a degree that trained you for 2010 or realize that your degree is not your competitive advantage anymore. It is what you have learned after you have got it. The biotech golden rush in India is happening right now. And at Bversity, we are decoding such complex industry insights. Maybe share this with your friends, subscribe and follow Bversity to know more.